Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are free, and it better be a good comment or it'll cost you. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now on News Talk, joining me as usual is Aaron William Freeland. Aaron, how are you doing today?
Why, I'm just fine, Frank. How are you?
Well, this cotton batting in my ear says I'm not as good as I'd like to be. I have an ear infection. I have swimmer's ear. I have, I don't know, a wax candle in my ear. I don't know what the problem is. I didn't go to the doctor. And so I self-diagnosed. And I went to the Walmart prescription area there. But didn't get a prescription because you can't get a prescription without a doctor. So I would never do that. I would never lie about having a doctor's note. Of course, you can't because they give it to them. So yeah, I got some medication for that. I got to use it for 7 days, 4 times, and the girly girl is taking out the cotton batting. She's giving a massage to the ear. It's exciting, really. It's really exciting. I mean, she's shoving a bottle in my ear. It's so thrilling. It sounds so hot and so sexy, doesn't it?
It's just so wrong, Frank.
If it wasn't for the liquid, I'd be full of it. All right, let's take a look. Let's start. And Aaron, I always appreciate the hard work that you do. And you got yourself a couple of stories. I'm going to just basically say this. Brian and Shannon in St. Kitts. What's up with them?
Right. So Brian and Shannon Kitts from Summerlin, BC got caught up in a bit of a Ponzi scheme thing. They actually fled to avoid prosecution. The RCMP, after an extensive investigation, they're now charged with fraud over 5,000, theft over 5,000, and money laundering. Now, I know. Goodness. Here's the thing. If you were involved with these individuals between February 2014 and September 2016, as well as with Vesta Cap Corp Incorporated and Vesta Equity Partners, you could potentially be involved in this lawsuit. The Alberta Security Commission actually issued sanctions against Brian Kitts and Vesta Cap Corp, as well as the other charges that they have there. So just be aware. This is obviously something that we want to look after you folks. This is a PSA. Be careful. A fool and his money are soon parted.
Son of a Canadian, Alan Thicke's son, Robin Thicke. Here you have him here as having an addiction problem.
Yeah, I don't know if many of you are aware, but a few years back, he had the song of the summer, Blurred Lines, which was, there was.
I guess we know why the blurred lines. It's funny.
Now we do, yes.
Now we know why he saw blurred lines.
Yeah, a combination of opioids and alcohol during his Blurred Lines era. Things weren't going well for him at that time either. I mean, he'd lost his father. The song was successful, but he was getting divorced from Paula Patton. So, all of that is a toxic stew. And if you're not prepared to handle it, it can be very, very difficult. Thank goodness he's seen his way through the other side of it now. He's got himself a successful gig with The Masked Singer. So, there's that going on for him too. And everything seems to be back on the straight and narrow for him. So,
yeah, Aaron, we all know we're all creatures of habits. And I use that term specifically, creature of habits. We have habits. And the question is, who's in control, you or the habit? And the problem is, you don't know until it's too late. And if you're lucky, it's not at the end, if you follow what I'm saying. So he's very fortunate that he realized he had a problem. And as you said, and to our viewers and listeners, you can come back. You truly can come back from anything. But the first step is recognizing that you need to come back and want to come back. So really, that's 2 steps. So good for him straightening out his life. it's not hard being famous, especially in the music industry, because there's part of the job is partying, I think. At least it used to be in the 60s when I used to watch, rock stars. It was all about partying. I mean, look at Mick Jagger. And then, of course, his guitarist, who looked like he died 25 years ago.
And who was surprisingly clean and sober.
Exactly. So it's all possible. You can have a lot of fun and not have to drink. And we frown on it nowadays because, A, we don't want people drinking and then driving. We don't want people smoking pot and driving, taking drugs and driving. All that stuff is bad. People are depending on you to make the right decision. And the right decision is to try not to live in excess. So that's the biggest lesson, I think, here, Aaron.
No, most definitely. I mean, if you look at what happened, 2013 was Blurred Lines. 2014, he separated from Paula Patton. 2015, he fell in love. Then 2016, his father passed away. 2017, his manager died. 2018, he lost his house in the wildfires in California. So you can understand. It's been a long road back.
Okay, this is a segue. Wait till you hear this segue. You ready?
Yep.
All I can say about the thick story is wow. But how about the way?
Oh, goodness.
Wow.
I knew we were going there.
You knew? It was predictable. Is that the way you set it up for me so I could come up with the wow way?
Wow.
So he has the right way now. He's going the right way. But unfortunately, Meng Wanzhou, she is... I guess she's the president, if I remember correctly, the president of Huawei. And she was found to be in the United States doing things a little untoward. And the Americans want her. And she has been, stuck on this court case in BC. The Americans want her. The Canadians don't really want to give her to the U.S. because the crimes that she's, committed, if she's committed them, in Canada, she can be punished in Canada for them. In the U.S., it may not be as pretty a sight. Is that basically it? And are they fearful of China?
I have a feeling they're more afraid of the economic repercussions than they are of China itself, which is, understandable. They are one of the largest markets in the world when it comes to this sort of thing. Right now, her lawyers are trying to drum up some interest in how she was arrested. Apparently, there's the RCMP's version, which is dull. There's her lawyer's version, which is full of aggravated assault and all sorts of other not so nice things to be accusing the RCMP of. And the truth is probably somewhere in between. So right now, they're expecting the judge to rule on whether or not her rights were violated during her arrest. So
yes, and the prison that she stayed in, it's not a prison, it's an expensive hotel, is where she's living, right? She's not exactly under she's under hotel arrest.
Not even service and laundry and everything.
Exactly. So, it's not like, the two Canadians that are in China, they're not in an expensive hotel. They're actually in a jail, and they're actually, this is the dance that the Canadian government is doing. But, we don't admit it because, we live in a time where the lessons were learned about terrorism. You don't give in to blackmail, because if you give in to blackmail, then the steepness of the situation you put yourself on can be very hazardous to the long-term health of this country. So it's an unenviable position that they're in. That's why you don't hear the Conservatives making noise about this, because this is something that really is important to Canada. It needs to be handled with kid gloves, not because of anything other than this is an international situation. And with international situations come international reactions. And sometimes it seems like the people who are committing the crime who don't live in Canada sometimes get a little more consideration than they would if they were actually Canadians and residents of Canada. But that's part of the game, right?
Yeah, it's all diplomacy. at this point. And the only reason that this has come to light, or this has all of a sudden become an issue, is because the two Michaels, two Canadians, are currently on trial in China. That's pretty much the only reason for this.
Yeah, the two Michaels squared don't want to be skewered. See how I did that? Okay,
very well done.
Let's go over to COVID in Canada, and the activity is still not fast enough, especially when you lay it across the American experience. If we can do both at the same time, are there lessons to be learned? Is it Biden that deserves credit, or is it the American system, which basically says doctors, pharmacies, drugs are for hire? Does that have anything to do with it? Because they pay basically top dollar for everything.
Just because you're paying top dollar doesn't necessarily mean the service is top dollar. I can understand where that perception comes from, because we've always valued things based on how much you pay for them.
Okay.
But in this particular case here, I think the federal government has been working very well with state and municipal to get doses into arms. I mean, they've had over 100 million jabs so far in Biden's first 58 days in office. And his stated goal was 100 million in 100 days. They're doing well over 2.5 to almost 3 million doses a day. So that's a good sign for the American economy going forward. Whereas in Ontario, we've got about 340,000 doses in freezers that we haven't managed to touch yet. And we've only fully vaccinated 2% of our population.
Some might suggest that the bars, actually all the bars that Biden has set, have been low enough for him to exceed on them.
It's entirely possible. I mean, they certainly do have the resources and well enough served communities to get that done. But at the same time, that doesn't explain why Ford's been dragging his feet on getting doses into arms up here.
Tell me about laid off flight attendants and vaccines.
Right. So this is actually a nice little human interest story here. There were a group of flight attendants who got laid off, from their employers because of COVID and the fact that they were no longer flying. And they started looking around for other jobs. And as it turned out, a whole bunch of them found work in one of these max vaccination clinics. I think there were 8 of them that ended up working together again. So, even separated, they found a way to keep in touch. So, and it's in this way, they're doing sort of the same sort of thing that they were doing before, helping people find their seats and get what they need. So it works out nice.
Yeah. Well, what is an essential service? Can we quickly talk about that? In my opinion, and please give me yours after I give you mine. In my opinion, essential services are relative to how many people the person comes into contact with in the normal course of a working day. Is that fair?
So you're saying the frequency of contacts defines whether or not they're essential?
Well, essential by definition doesn't exist anymore because it's been rejigged, right? Since the pandemic, who would have considered a grocery store clerk or cashier an essential service person? The point is, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say it's an interesting contrast to those who complain about automated service kiosks.
Absolutely.
Look at there's the balance, right? You can either serve yourself at one of these kiosks, or you can go to an essential worker who makes less than minimum wage that you look down upon. Pick one.
The essentiality is based on the necessity and the people who provide the service to fulfill that necessity. So if my point was just simply that, for me, if we're going to go back to deciding what parts of the economy we want to activate, I will use the teachers as an example. If that's a primary group of people that you want to go to work, and you want to make sure, because of the amount of contact they make with people, here's where the rubber doesn't meet the road, where it's kind of hitting a speed bump. See there, that's like school, right? There's speed bumps near schools. The speed bump is the fact that children don't pass the disease as readily as adults do. So a grocery store clerk, a teacher, how do you decide? A flight attendant or a teacher? at the end of the day, what has to happen is the economy has to come back, and we have to protect each other based on science, and I'm going to call it fact mathematics as well. Mathematics has entered into the issue because the simple math became where we thought at the beginning you get 2 doses and make sure they get them. That was the original plan. And then all of a sudden, somebody said, namely Biden and his administration, said, isn't it better to get that first dose to everybody because of the excessive good effect that it has on people not dying from the disease, maybe not even being hospitalized because they had one. So spread that around. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that the whole point is we don't want the transmission of the disease or the virus, I'm sorry. So when you go to Florida, wear a mask. So in essence, what we're seeing there is a lot of people getting together who are transmitting the disease, the virus again, I'm sorry. And that's how I judge who is essential. The essentiality is based on the proximity of other people and how many of them come into your space or have to come into your space. So I think airplanes, flight attendants, to get back at the beginning of the conversation, I think they're important in the sense that, you know, they go to the airport and it's a crowded place, but you could say the same thing about McDonald's, you know, in the course of one day.
Now, if we're going to declare teachers essential, bear with me here. The government has released their new schedule for everyone to get vaccinated. The teachers aren't due to get their first jabs until June, which is after the school year is over. So I'm not sure how the Ford government is going about showing that teachers are essential by bumping them to the back of the queue.
I think they agree with me. That's just it. You know, I've said this before, and I know we have teachers as friends. We have people involved in the learning process. But the fact is that children don't transmit the virus as quickly and as often, and they acquire it at they acquire it at a low percentage and give it off at a low percentage. So it doesn't surprise me. The facts will always change, true, but the facts also, Aaron, are the facts at the moment, admittedly, of the moment. But eventually what happens is we all, you know, it's like the battle between Florida doing what they're doing and what everybody else is doing. And, you know, and now all of a sudden, because they've apparently done such a good job, now everybody wants to go to Florida because everybody wants to, we had this conversation last week, they all want to unwind.
Now, as of March 23rd, Frank, there have been 11,440 cases of COVID-19 in schools, 8,400 among students, 1,800 among staff members, and 1,200 among support workers. There have been 997 schools with active cases. Of those 997, 411 have had more than one.
Wow.
Yeah, so it adds a little more context when you realize that there are quite a lot of students, and the transmission rates that we're looking at here and the rates of infection for those particular demographics, those under the age of 20, in the past week has been up 28% in the past
they're
week.
High.
As much as kids don't spread the disease,
I'm not talking about, but I'm talking about, you know, K to 12, right? I'm not talking K to 12. I'm talking K to, let's say, 8. You know,
I understand that, but in the under 20 demographic, you're still looking at a 28% increase week over week.
Yeah, well, it is. We know why, because they refuse to not interact because it's part of their age group and who they are and what they want to be and all that wonderful stuff. Now, I see here a note on the AR-15. Well, Colorado has been the next place that has been visited by tragedy. 10 people, a police officer dead in a grocery store. Aaron, I wrote an article for La Portada. If you guys want to check La Portada, I wrote an article on this story, but not on the story. For me, from a Canadian slant, and that is we fortunately lag behind the U.S. in regards to mass multiple or mass murders, right? God, I don't even like saying it. I don't even like saying it, Aaron. It just turns my stomach just thinking about it. Now, you wrote in here, and I'm looking, and I'm going, really? They took the AR-15 from him the day before the incident because it.
Now, here's the thing. He didn't actually use an AR-15 in the shooting.
Oh, okay.
He used a Ruger AR-556, which is a similar but slightly shorter weapon that he purchased the same day.
Okay.
So his parents saw him trying on tactical vests and fiddling around with the AR-15 inside the house because it had jammed. And they say, well, we can't have that. You're not allowed to play with this inside the house, and took it away from him. This was 2 days before the shooting actually went down. So the family does have guns. They're aware of the situation. They are aware that he has his own tactical vest and probably all of his, gear, but he actually purchased the Ruger AR-556, which is chambered for NATO style 5.56 mil rounds, on March 16th, shortly before the shooting, and then went and did it. So the proliferation and the easy access that these individuals have to weapons of this type, lead to very bad days for many people other than just the gunman. Well,
I got caught, made the news and all that. I got shot at. I got caught between a shooter and a possible victim. I got caught in between. Gunshots missed me by a couple inches at Yorkdale Shopping Mall. I lived through that. It was an experience I'll never forget. It was horrifying because the whole mall, it's a very busy mall if you know it, and people, the panic and the fear that ensues is palpable. And also it lasts and it is deep. I know personally that it can affect you drastically. The article that I wrote, and I hope you and others will read it, is basically talking about how do we deal with these kinds of people with mental issues who basically can be noticed, red flags because of family, friends, neighbors. I feel I feel people don't go to the police because of some of the stuff we see, because sometimes when you call the police, they're like a hammer looking for a nail, and they if it looks like a nail, they're going to hammer it. So what happens is people don't want to call the police because they're afraid of where it's going to go. We've heard a little bit about this, and I think it's important that we develop an organization that doesn't have badges and guns, not necessarily white coats, because I don't think that's any better. But I think people who should be there almost undercover as just people that are visiting the family and try to get an up close interpretation of where that person's head's at. In other words, if the parents, and I didn't know about this when I wrote the article, so the parents would call somebody and somebody would show up because they're playing with a gun and then start asking questions and stuff. And if they're experts and understand the mind and the state of mind of people who we should concern ourselves with, in other words, they have a history, an education, an understanding, it is their wheelhouse to read people, maybe something like that doesn't happen. And if people are confident enough, because we see it in the Black community. A lot of times the Black community in the U.S. won't call the police because they're afraid of how the police will react, right? And then if something bad happens, it's not because they didn't want to call the police. It's they didn't have faith in the police to deal with it in a fair and just and compassionate way. But we don't expect the police to be compassionate. That's not one of their strengths, right? They carry a gun, and they carry a badge, and they're there to enforce the law, enforce their law enforcement. Well, in the case of this guy, it's not about enforcement, it's about prevention, right? Not that the police don't prevent stuff, but in this case, it's heavier on prevention.
No, we'll definitely have to take a look for it, Frank.
Absolutely. Okay. Shrimp and cinnamon toast crunch. You got a few seconds.
Yeah, so somebody found shrimp tails in their package of cinnamon toast crunch, as well as one of the bags that had been taped up in a family bulk pack that they bought, not to mention dental floss. Cinnamon toast tried to play it off as an accretion of sugar that happened to look like shrimp tails. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
That's just Unbelievable, to say the least.
America.
Well, Aaron, today went pretty fast, buddy.
Yeah.
Hey, good job, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you for carrying me today. I appreciate it. Thank you, Aaron. He is Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanishi. Thank you for watching News Talk, seen live Mondays and Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For News Talk and other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thank you for watching. I'm Candid. He's Aaron. Until